Hey, it's Ron Jones from Lean Berets. I'm here with Philippe Til from Los Angeles, who just translated The Natural Method by George Hebert out of the French language. And thanks for coming down. We've been doing some demonstration videos of some really basic fundamental movements with different layering. But I wanted to spend a few minutes with you chatting on camera. And then, of course, make sure to check out the full podcast show where we go into this in more detail. But we've got a mutual interest in the historical methods. And we've been taught by our mentors that George Hebert was one of the classical people that we need to pay attention to.
Well, indeed, his work, at least the manuscript that I've translated, was written in the early 1900s.
Okay.
Like, I think the first edition was like around 1910.
Ah.
So it goes way, way back.
So
right?
he was in the golden era of basically American physical education, 1885 to 1920. He
Yep.
was in the sweet spot. Right?
Yep. And the interesting thing is that he himself references several other people, I can't name them right now, but before him.
Right.
And so it's not like he just came up with something out of the blue. It came out of necessity, simply by rescuing a village in Africa from a volcanic eruption of himself and other people. So he saw the need to be functional, all around athletic, to be able to run, jump, lift, do
Yes.
whatever kind of operations. He also was observing the native indigenous African population, which I had the opportunity to see the Maasai warriors on my honeymoon back in 2006, and how graceful these people were, how well they moved. That's a true natural athlete, and they still live a certain nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle. So again, he saw all of that, and then he went back and he studied the books, and he essentially systemized, put into a method, how we can take what other people can develop naturally, whether you're working on a farm and manual labor gives you that natural fitness,
Right.
or living in the wild gives you that other sense of natural fitness. For those of us who live in cities, and the problem of sitting down and hunched shoulders is way before computers. If he already mentioned it over 115 years ago,
Right.
think about how bad the problem has spread out since.
Oh yeah, there's many references to postural issues 100 years ago.
So if I wouldn't tell you, look, you have to do my method if you want to be well run, it's more like, look, if you don't have the means to live in an environment that allows you to naturally develop that, here's how we can bring the method to you wherever you are in the city, and you create your environment. It's also why the parkour people decided to use the city as their workout, as their environment, as their outdoor gym.
Now Hebert's been called the father of parkour.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
He's I would call him the forefather. I don't think
Okay.
it was intentional.
Okay.
I think the inner city kids who came up with it inspired themselves from that. But the word parcours in French comes from parcours du combattant, which means the warrior's obstacle course.
Oh.
We've all seen the military footage.
Right.
The Marines going through their boot camps,
Sure.
they're running monkey bars, climbing
Yeah.
ropes, climbing walls, jumping, carrying somebody.
Right.
Then they do a run of push-ups. All of that is essentially what Hebert had designed.
Right.
And other people in other countries have done so too, but I think he has a model that was revolutionized worldwide in many physical education programs in schools, as well as naval academies where he tested it, or other military academies.
Now, what was he known for? If we just put him in one category, was he known more for jumping and leaping, or was it just more of a general?
It's more of a general thing.
Okay.
It's about being a well-rounded athlete. As a matter of fact, the first book, and the first part of the translation, is the expose, the explanation of the method. So Hebert would go into how to conduct a model lesson, an hour-long session, which will have everything in it. The running, the walking, the marching, the fundamental movements, some of which we've explored in videos, climbing, throwing, lifting versus resistance work. Like, we've done a little bit of resistance work earlier, with some light weights or bands, but then there's the lifting and carrying of either heavy stones or heavy objects, metallic or whatever, and as well as lifting people. The whole rescue portion comes from resistance training.
Right. Now, did he study other classical people before him? Because if we look at Ling and Yan, we know that they went back and they looked at previous systems, maybe back to ancient Greece. He would have been young enough to have seen Ling and Yan, right, and see that develop in the mid-1800s, late 1800s.
Indeed, actually, I'm just going to be lazy about this. If you just go to his Wikipedia page, you'll see a list of everybody that he credits before him.
Oh, great. Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. We'll have to hook that link up.
Yeah.
So, what I like about it is you've explained that this is a very practical system
Yes.
for everyday people. So sometimes we can get into the things that are so sophisticated and so precise that it can turn people off. But you had mentioned some of his teaching philosophies, not to get too technical or too buried in the details, correct?
Indeed, and I think that's something that even is making a resurgence right now in some
Right.
of the blogs or articles that I see online. But he will say, look, culturally people will move differently. A squat is a squat. If you can squat a certain way and be pain-free and do it repeatedly over the years, I'm not going to tell you how to change your squat because it doesn't fit my rules of the powerlifting squatting competition. Same
Right.
thing, I'm not knocking that. I'm saying
Yeah.
that's a competition, that's a sport.
Mhm.
His was a little bit different. Interestingly enough, we hadn't discussed it before, but there's another French guy. His name is Pierre de Coubertin. And Coubertin and Hebert were feuding at some point.
So the feuding in fitness is nothing new.
Nothing new. They were actually disagreeing on the benefits of sport. That sport, for the sake of sport and competition, would remove the all-around athleticism that the method would promote. It becomes, well, obviously you will become a little bit more specific.
Right.
And I've read something, and I would tend to agree with that. It's almost like saying that let's say an MMA fighter, all right, would probably kick your butt in a competition. But then you've got the tactical survival fighter, tactical athlete, or even the street fighter. The purpose is different. When you train for competition, you tend to dull a certain instinct. You play within certain rules.
Right.
When you're on the street or for survival, those rules don't apply.
Right.
And you've got a slightly different, sharper edge
Okay.
that comes to that. So anyway, that's some of the discussions and the arguments and disagreements
Interesting.
between the two, and that's going to be another book. Actually, another gentleman is going to translate.
Okay. So you have trained all kinds of different people. I've known you for a number of years. You're one of the top physical trainers in Los Angeles area. You've trained competitive fighters, law enforcement, special agents, IT people, producers, whatever. How are you applying the natural method to your everyday clientele at all these different levels? Is it something that's scalable? Do you find it practical? How are they responding to it?
The response has been overwhelmingly positive, both in the results and the interest.
Okay.
It's great because we provide a certain sense of variety and entertainment as a trainer. We have to keep our clients interested, but the function and the benefits are primordial. That's what people come to us for.
Right.
Every time I learn something and I reapply it, because I've actually been doing natural method for a lot longer than I remember. Because I started in elementary.
You were raised in France,
I
right?
was raised in France, and this was the foundation of our programs.
Okay.
But look, it's like when you go to China, you call food food. You don't call it Chinese.
So you didn't know?
I didn't know this was what I was doing.
You were just doing it.
I was doing it. I remember
Okay.
going through all the arm positions, all the
that's
arm
great.
movements. We were fortunate to have 3 hours of PE per week, broken up into a 1 hour and 2 hour chunk. The 1 hour was more of these movements in preparation, or a form of running, sprinting or distance. Whereas the 2 hour chunk was, again, a foundational hour and training hour, followed by an hour of sports.
So high quality.
Team sports. Yeah, we had it all.
Yeah.
And so it was very well rounded. So again, for my clients, most of them have been training with me for such a long time. We just modify the goals for the season. Hey, do you want to look good for the beach? Do you have a race to run? You have a triathlon? You have a half marathon?
Yeah.
You are getting ready for a wedding, or you're going to be training because you're in the off season of baseball, for instance, right? So we have these variations. But every plan that I have, and that's what Hebert does, he plans it weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly. So everything links.
Okay.
Just like the movements we did, each movement of the base of the pyramid links to the next movement, to the next movement.
Yeah, they're layered sequentially, right?
Right. And I found that by creating an all-around development, you reach your goals no matter what. You know, people are so hyper-focused. Oh, I want to lose weight. I'm like, okay, go to the kitchen, get your knife and fork, and set that up, right? That's really the best tools out of the farmers markets.
Yeah.
But really, if you move better, you move more, with greater ease, with more confidence. that's going to beget that weight loss. That's going to beget that muscular development.
Well,
we're not talking about hypertrophy to a bodybuilding level,
right.
which is a hyper focus. But same thing when you take a popular training program that lasts 90 days, and that's kind of on the crazy side. You are just as skilled, if at all, at the end of the workout as you were at the beginning of the workout, or at the end of the 3 months. I'm not interested in making you just look good 3 months down the line.
Right.
But I see the results by clients that will be able to do a crazy move on the rings, or move better in martial arts, or be more efficient, like they go from a snatch test to a Secret Service snatch test. I mean, whatever benefits they get, it just become incidental. It's, yes, you talk about GPP, but it's all well-rounded.
Yeah, this is an important thing. If you lock into the historical systems, whether it be Hebert or some of the other ones, and I know changing my training the last year or two, getting more into the classical types of systems, the strength improvements and range of motion were kind of byproducts of something else going on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about a six-pack or whatever. It just, and there was more deeper intrinsic value I found with it, of becoming a better person, basically the Greek ideal.
And for me too, it's taken me years, because I'll be honest with you, I try to fit a square peg into a round hole at times, as part of certain communities where they're promoting this type of training or promoting that type of training, and I don't have the build for a certain type of lifting, or that doesn't mean I shouldn't learn the skill, because I'm still a trainer and I enjoy it. But then you got to learn your limitation. You got a certain structural limitation by having a long neck and a long limb.
Right.
So that's going to affect on how you snatch or deadlift. And ultimately, the goal is longevity. I'm of no use to my family, because I've got a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. If in 10 years I can't play ball with them, if I can't keep up with them.
Right. We want to move better.
We want to move better.
Right.
We want to move pain-free. And I found that you really find your own voice, your own needs in that method, because it exposes you to so much.
Right.
It's okay to have a hyper focus on something, again, but it's also great to be very general.
Right.
And people forget that, again, a weight loss program or anything like that is not just about the knife and fork. It's about moving well. Just do like stupid moves that are non-sustainable. It doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah, and the classical idea back in the day was, when you left the gymnasium, you left better than when you walked in terms of your physical literacy, your education, your skill level.
Yep.
Instead of just getting through X amount of sets and reps, I learned something today and I'm moving better, therefore I can age better, more pain-free.
Yeah.
Now, the last question, then we'll get to the podcast if you guys want more details, but what about the results? How fast do they happen? I mean, because my heart rate was up there in about 30 seconds, but watching real people do this in today's world, do they feel different after a session, or is it something that takes months to reap the benefits from?
So what I've noticed, I train people anywhere from once a week, twice a week, to 4 times a week. And because of how the program is laid out, and if you're smart about periodizing and undulating and waving your loads, you can do this every day. It actually recommends you do an hour of it every day, 60 minutes a day. I don't think 6, maybe even 7 days a week.
Right.
The 3 parts of the book are actually 4 parts. It's not the expose, the explanation on the first one. The second book is the fundamentals, or basic educational exercise to teach you how to move. The third one are the indispensable utilitarian exercise, aka functional exercise. That's where you apply stuff. That's where second book would be hopping. Third book would be jumping. There's a difference in that.
Yes, exactly.
There's support exercises and hanging exercises in the second book. Push-ups, planks, or pull-ups and hanging abs. But then you have the actual lifting of stones, of dumbbells, of clubs, or whatever.
Okay.
So that's where you develop that greater strength and athleticism. And then it ends with a culmination being sports, manual labor, and games.
So it's very practical.
It's very practical.
You've got all the elements of basically classical physical education. There's sports, recreation, games, dance, martial arts, combatives, restorative, it's all there.
But what do? We do an abridged version, culturally, of book number 3. We'll only do the lifting part.
Yeah.
We're not going to work on the throwing. I went bowling recently. And I was bowling with the right hand, and I'm like, well, Hebert would want me to bowl with the left hand.
Right.
So I got to become ambidextrous.
Mhm.
I got to develop that bilateral marksmanship, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
That's how we want you to train.
Because all sports create some kind of imbalance or asymmetry.
Yeah,
So
and that's probably also one of the aspects of not just training for sports that Hebert was, I was going to guess, against,
Mhm.
because he wants to build that symmetry. I mean,
Right.
what if you lose a limb? If your
Yeah.
other limb is there and it's useless,
You better start bowling with the other arm.
And he talks a lot about losing a limb or getting injured, especially in the rescue portion. And he
Mm.
says, no, this is very beneficial, especially if you have a leg or an arm that is injured. So you got to be able. So it makes a lot of sense.
Right. If in a combative situation, maybe
Yep.
one arm is broken, and now if
Yep.
you're not training the other one. So how can they find this work?
The easiest way, you go to Amazon, and if you just type in the natural method, all 3 books will pop up for you.
Great. And your website is
My website is action-fitness.com. So once or twice a week I publish a blog, and they're usually, I want to say, 60 to 80% focused on elements of the natural method, whether it's some pictures or video footage or just a general rambling and ranting or education or sharing other discoveries with people like yourself, for instance.
Yeah, and we'll do another show and some other videos maybe later this summer on the connection between our historical project, LaSierra High School Physical Education Program, and Hebert's influence on Coach Stan LeProtti, because there's some interesting correlations there we found along the journey.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so will we. Thank you.
Thank you.